Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Max Christie has a new contract and hopefully a new role. What's he going to make of it? Next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, it's always free. It's never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 24,000 subscribers to the channel.
25,000.
You know what? I said 24 for a little while. It gets buried in your head, but yes, it is 25,000 plus subscribers, all of whom are wondering whether or not Max Christie, on the heels of signing a new $32 million contract, is going to have a significant impact on the team this year. Spoiler alert, he'd better. Do want to let everybody know before we get into that Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, and as the playoffs wind down, or let's be honest, they're over. The sports have stopped sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Quick reminder as well, we are almost at the fall when all the cool stuff happens. That's one of the golden times of the sporting calendar, the fall. All right. So Max Christie is a guy who I think it's fair to say, certainly by the end of the year, that fans really wondered, like, hey, could this guy be helping? You know, like, let's see what I did.
If by fans you mean me,
right.
Yes, Brian. I spent a lot of time, not just at the end of the season, but the beginning and the middle, wondering if he could. Be
all
helping.
of it, all the parts, yeah. But I did a Spectrum Sportsnet on Thursday in LA, the Lakers TV station. You and I are there. Once, twice a month, they have us on their studio show, which obviously we love doing and really appreciate. But we were talking a little bit about Christie and his new contract, and they showed his stats, and it was, X amount of games and 14.1 minutes. And I made the joke. I'm like, is that his average per game or the total amount of minutes that he played over the course of the entire season? It turns out it was an average, but it felt like, particularly after the All-Star break, that it wasn't, that was his cumulative total. And by the time the playoffs came around, I mean, it was nothing. And that was, I know, a point of frustration, certainly for Max Christie, and it reportedly was one for the front office as well.
Yeah. Every indication you would read or talking with people was that the front office was giving Darvin space to run the rotation the way he wanted to, but did not quite understand why Christie was not getting consistent opportunities, particularly at times where, quite frankly, there were needs for somebody that of his particular skill set, whether you're talking about the defensive potential he's shown, whether you're talking about the shooting, small sample size, but it's been pretty consistent from three. Whether you're talking about the rebounding, a point I harped on a lot, Max Christie was, if you're talking about guys playing anywhere small forward down to point guard, 3-1, he was by far the best rebounder on this team. I mean, there really was nothing to debate, and rebounding was often a big issue for this team. And then when you also just think about young talent and the idea that even if the Lakers are in win now mode, you still want to be thinking about guys that could, if nothing else, be developed to help you for that window of winning. However long the window you think LeBron and AD is going to be viable, you would at least want to develop some guys along for the ride with them. I just never understood the resistance towards putting Christie out there. Like, by the end, I had resigned myself to the idea of nothing else. He's played so little, it's not really fair to him Yeah, I agree.
But
especially during the playoffs when Darvin is trying to force feed this backcourt of Gabe Vincent and Spencer Dinwiddie that on a lot of levels was not working, nor was it addressing problem areas. I really wanted to see more of Christie, and I'm glad to see that the Lakers seem to agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, there are shades of the THT contract, Taylor Horton Tucker, where the Lakers paid him before he was really had proven that he was a high-end NBA player. And I realize this is how the world works. So you get these guys and they're on shorter deals, and if you want to keep them, especially if they've shown potential, which THT had, by the way,
Sure.
then just full disclosure, I didn't mind that they paid THT. I minded that they paid THT and then didn't pay Caruso. But I would have gotten that part of it wrong too. I thought they should have kept him. It's you look at Christie at like $8 million a year and the potential and all that kind of stuff, and like there is some risk there, no question. But he certainly showed enough, I think, to justify the Lakers wanting to make the investment in him. They don't want much of a choice anyway. Even as somebody who's a little bit skeptical of it, it's like, pump the brakes a little bit on it. He's not the magic elixir for everything. If you look at the results of him, particularly as a rookie, the promise sometimes exceeded the actual results when he was on the floor, which is not a criticism for a second round pick. But even with that, like, it still reaches a point where you're like, I don't understand what the problem is. Like, I would have loved to understand and have articulated more clearly. And this is not something Darvin ever really did with any of his rotation choices. What it was that Christie wasn't doing. Like, what are you trying to accomplish, and why doesn't Max Christie fit with that? That's the part that I never understood.
Yeah, and what prompted us, by the way, to talk about Christie is a piece that Jovan Buha wrote, The Athletic. Friend of the show was on with me last week while Brian was out of town, and he has a podcast interview, Buha's Block, with Max, but also had a piece for The Athletic where he talked about just the expectations internally for Christie, the way he's been preparing for what's expected of him offensively and defensively. We've talked about the spot-up shooting, which I think will be the largest chunk of what they look for offensively, but he's also been talking about going through film, identifying how he was attacking closeouts before and how he was often overthinking it, and just looking now to just react quicker and more freely, and just to have these decisions come more naturally to him. Defensively, Christie's been working with the coaching staff and the development staff about becoming more disruptive as a defender, looking to get ball handlers uncomfortable, wasting the shot clock. This is all stuff from Jovan's piece. Picking up their dribble, getting rid of the ball, just stuff that gets the offense, imagining relatively early on in these sets, just out of rhythm altogether, navigating screens better, maintaining his energy, maintaining his legs when you have these sort of assignments. And we got a YouTube comment from Murabali _Bala13, because we had teased this conversation about Christie, among other guys, coming. Let me kick off this discussion with Max Christie, the most intriguing of the lot, and also because he's going to be on your agenda pretty soon. Who should we want Max Christie's role to emulate from that 2020 championship? Danny Green, Alex Caruso, or KCP? Can he develop into one of those role players by the end of the season? Maybe. He'll need playing time, make open threes at a decent clip, guard 1 through 3, on the ball, the point of attack, rebound the long balls off the rim, and be that primary guy that impacts our improved transition D. What are you sensing? I'm sensing a Danny Green archetype. I think Danny Green sounds about right. I mean,
It's an interesting question. Let's do it. Let's do it after the break, because it's something I actually think that both when you think about the archetypes, but also the combinations in terms of how he fits onto the roster, because that's important too. So let's get to all that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much more. All the above, whether you're into speed, power, style, again, all the above. eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
I want to ask you before we get back to Max Christie, if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, do you have to turn the volume down with all that shouting? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring the biggest sports stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Christie thing is, in theory, this is one of those situations where I realize it's the third year he's been on the team, but it becomes one of these moments that you hope you're kind of adding a free agent, or that you've made a trade without action, just from internal improvement. And so the three guys that were mentioned in the mailbag question, it's Danny Green, KCP, and who's the third?
Caruso.
Alex Caruso. I can see little bits of each. He settled on Danny Green, which I think would be a phenomenal result. Danny Green was really good.
Yeah. The reason Danny Green came to mind for me is, of the three guys from that championship team, I think his role was the simplest to define on both sides of the ball, which, even though Danny Green was, brought in to be a veteran presence for that team, somebody who had won multiple championships, the simplicity of his role seems apropos for what you would look for with Max Christie. Like, offensively, KCP was running off a lot of screens and motion a lot more. Caruso defensively, I think, would be asked to do a little bit more variety-wise than Christie would this coming season. And also, too, Caruso, he's turned himself into a much better offensive player, shooting, distributing, whatever. But it's easy to forget, during the championship season, Caruso was basically a zero offensively. He was just so good defensively that it didn't matter. And he was part of an absolutely elite defensive team. Christie, I think, if nothing else, they're looking to be less gun shy when it comes to open shots. I mean, Caruso often passed him up.
Yeah. No, I think when you look at Christie's strengths as a player, I don't see him quite as the same kind of defender as Caruso either. I mean, Alex Caruso, and it's not a knock on Christie, Caruso's another planet in terms of he is one of those elite NBA level defenders. And it doesn't mean they can't get beaten. It doesn't mean, the Bulls have a great defense, but he's one of those guys.
Yeah.
And to not be one of those guys does not mean you're not good.
And you were seeing the signs of it. He wasn't then what he is now, but you were seeing the signs of, okay, he really could be at this level.
And I think there are some similarities in terms of when you think about it, how is Caruso being used? And how was, are you putting him in the right situations to succeed? Are you asking him to do the wrong things? When that happened, AC wasn't nearly as successful. I think one of the biggest differences is, for what these things are worth, there was a much earlier impact of wow, the numbers really seem to be pretty positive when this guy's on the floor. The impact seems to be positive, very similar to first season Reeves, where you're this is kind of hard to ignore. And that stuff wasn't there with Christie. It's not apples to apples because context is really important. Who's on the floor? What's the situation? Who are you playing? All that kind of stuff. And so I think that matters. But I agree with you that the Green thing, I think it's the easiest thing for them to define to him. When Christie's playing on the ball and they're trying to get him to do point guard stuff or whatever it might be, or even sort of facilitator type stuff, he really didn't thrive in that. When you have him coming off screens, when you have him catch and shoot, he can make a connecting pass, he can do that kind of stuff. He's more effective than he can, he really is, I think, ideally that 3-and-D archetype where you're guarding more 2s and 3s than 3s and 4s, but it's still a really valuable position on the floor. And he'd better be good because they need him. They're going to need Max Christie to be effective this year, in combination with somebody like Dalton Knecht to fill some spaces on the wing, be reliable shooters, and particularly in the case of Christie, be part of a reliable defense.
Well, and you're also seeing some reporting. I know this is something that's come from Jovan Buha, but there have been others as well, that the Lakers, while I don't think, or maybe I just hope, do not see Max Christie with an increased role or drafting Dalton Knecht or a full season of Jared Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent healthy as the true equivalent of new free agent acquisitions. Because if you take that too far, that's letting yourself off the hook for the things that you tried to do during the offseason and couldn't. And that can just make it too easy for yourself. But that being said, it is worth examining the idea of how much potentially better do they get from a full season of Jared Vanderbilt, a full season of Gabe Vincent, Max Christie actually being utilized, Dalton Knecht as a rookie who will at times inevitably look like a rookie, but also, at least based on what we saw in the Summer League and the way people, who've scouted him and, the scouting report we did for the show, see him, he's a rookie who can play. Like, he's a rookie that it is reasonable to expect to be in the rotation 15 minutes a night.
I think he starts the season with a 15-minute role.
Right.
And if he only doesn't keep it if he can't, particularly if the Lakers don't manage to find a more reliable backup big, if they don't go out and get a different power forward to kind of give it, like, I think you put Knecht in there. Hey, look, somebody to some degree, and we can carry this conversation on through the break in a couple minutes, but like, if everybody is healthy, you are to some degree back in the position where you were last offseason, going into the season, where you and I talked about someone is going to be left out of the rotation on a nightly basis. Maybe it is Knecht, just because oftentimes it is the rookie. Maybe it's Vincent, depending on how they carve up the point guard minutes. Like, do you need a second point guard all the time? Like, if your concern isn't necessarily defense. And so, like, ideally, if everybody's healthy, but then we on the flip side is, like, it's not how it's going to work. Like, someone is going to be hurt. A couple people are going to be hurt.
Sure.
Through the
but
season.
as long as there's enough of, say, Vando and Vincent compared to last year, where it felt like the guys were actually on the team. Like,
right.
Vando and Vincent, for all intents and purposes, were not on the team last year.
No.
Like, they had no presence on last year's team at all, and they were two guys expected to have.
Right. And when Vanderbilt was like, it's almost in some ways, I don't want to say worse than the Vincent situation, because it's not, but aside from that, whatever 15 games or whatever 10, 15 game stretch that he had coming back from the injury after a little while before he got hurt again, he was a liability.
Yeah.
Vincent at least couldn't hurt you when he was on the floor coming back. Vanderbilt did, those first, until he got into
I think Vincent hurt him when he came back, to be honest. He
did, but he didn't. My point is, he didn't play enough. He was gone for so long.
Got it. I see.
He didn't play enough. Like, he wasn't available to play to hurt them. Whereas Vanderbilt had like a 15 or 20 game stretch, whatever it was, when he first came back from that injury, before he found a bit of a groove, that he did actually hurt them. And so let's keep talking about this, because this is the big question when you think about what are the Lakers this year, and how much of a difference does JJ Redick make? And Redick is directly related to this conversation about Christie. So we'll get to all of it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. We all love sports. We love sports so much we never want the sports to stop, but it's that time of year where you get fewer games and the sports do not sports like we want them to. But FanDuel helps you, helps me, helps everybody keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do is open up the app, dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. There are options: baseball, Olympics, WNBA, plus the upcoming 24-25 NBA season. There are odds out there as of this recording. Lakers are 35-1 to win the title. Anthony Davis 150-1 for MVP. LeBron 200-1. Dalton Connect 10-1 for Rookie of the Year. And the much discussed on this show, Max Christie, 151 for Most Improved Player. And this summer, FanDuel hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
So we'll finish this conversation in a second. But most, I think, fans, but if you missed it, have seen it. But if you missed it, the second of the 3 Kobe statues to be unveiled around Crypto.com Arena is happening Friday, today, with public viewing starting on Saturday. This is the statue of Kobe and Gigi. It will be unveiled in a smaller private ceremony, not for the public, and again available for people to view on Saturday. So if you're local and you want to go see it, you can, starting this weekend. So that is definitely news of interest to pass along. So I mentioned I did the TV thing on Thursday, Andy, and one of the questions was about which new coach is going to be most successful. You could choose Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland, although the Eastern Conference got harder. I think Budenholzer in Phoenix is a perfectly good answer there. And I think another one is JJ Redick. And the reason is, if you think the Lakers can get some health, is Redick more likely to optimize guys like Max Christie and not just play them more, but use them more effectively when they're on the floor than Darvin Ham did? If the answer to both of those questions is yes, you get the health, fingers crossed, requires some luck, and you get better coaching. Well, the Lakers would have won more than 50 games last year with that formula. And while they didn't necessarily get way better this year, it's the same team. They didn't get worse.
That's kind of what I'm getting at when I talked about the idea of how much do you look at these new presences or availabilities as it's obviously the nucleus is the same team, but additions being made or additions being utilized, like actually filling some areas of need. Because when you look at last year's team, some of the issues that I think, especially post around February, when they started playing the most optimal offensive lineup with D'Lo, Reeves, Rui, LeBron, AD as the starting lineup, they began to score really well, but there were other areas that began to fall off, and rebounding was a big issue. Defense was an issue. I think energy and a certain edge was missing from this team. And Max Christie, Jared Vanderbilt, Dalton Connect, we saw certain things I'll get into in the summer league that I think could potentially fill here, and Gabe Vincent, they all in varying degrees, I think, specifically address those areas of need. Like last year, the Lakers were this really weird team where they were one of the league leaders in defensive rebounds per game, but they were only, I believe, 12th in terms of defensive rebounding percentage. In terms of available defensive rebounds, how many of them did you actually get? And they were very bad.
The other team got so many extra shots that the Lakers could get more rebounds.
Yeah, they managed to be this team that would get a lot of defensive rebounds, but also allow tons of offensive rebounds, which seems impossible, yet it happened. And they were very bad. They were one of the worst teams in the league at opponent second chance points. They also allowed a ton of points in transition. And these are specific areas where Jared Vanderbilt, Max Christie, Gabe Vincent, maybe not Vincent on the glass, although I suppose he could be better at, sandwich rebounds, cracking bat, whatever, than some of the other guys were, just fighting through it more. But Vanderbilt and Christie were two of the best rebounders on this team. They were missed along those lines. Dalton Knecht in Summer League averaged almost 5 rebounds a game. That's pretty good for a 2-guard or a small 3. His energy, he's often running the floor. He's often moving. Just like I think Knecht being out there, there's a certain lack of stagnation that was there last year that I don't think is going to be there this year. Like, especially when you hear the way JJ Redick wants to implement more motion, more off-ball stuff, just less traditional pick and roll heavy. He wants more stuff happening on the floor. These are things missing from last year that, again, it is letting the front office off the hook just to say, well, Christie got paid, Vando and Vincent, fingers crossed, stay healthy. They drafted the player available to them that they never expected. Problem solved.
Mm-hmm.
Give Pelinka yet another extension. But I do think it is realistic to think about those guys available and utilized well as improvements. Enough improvements? Probably not, but improvements nonetheless.
Where I think, God, I hate when this happens. Where I think this, where you do become a defender of the strategy of no, don't pull the trigger on Jeremy Grant. No, and not that we've been advocating for it, but this idea of as frustrating as it is, and as I'm trying to think of the right word. It's convenient for the Lakers who preached, oh no, like we're gonna have 3 first-round picks. We're gonna get after it this summer. It's gonna be the summer Lakers. It's gonna be boom, 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 boom. We're making moves happen. No. Got to be patient again. But
Pelinka's got a bad habit of laying down markers where it's like, say less, my man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a big overpromiser and underdeliverer.
He can be.
But just, whatever you say, what you need to say to calm things down in the moment is sort of what he does. And don't be upset. We're gonna have all this flexibility. Oh, but now it turns out you can't use it. And just because we've agreed most of the time, like I understand why they're in the box they're in, but don't promise me that the action is coming and then not deliver and then not expect fans to be upset by it. Yeah. But, when you think that is an argument as well for waiting, it is an argument as well for seeing what you are so that you can make a more educated and targeted and better deal with your one shot or your 1.5, two doubles, 1 home run, however you want to qualify it. Because if those guys come back and they're healthy and they make a difference, and the team will look different than it did last year, it will behave differently, it will play differently. You have a new coach, you have a new system, you have all these other things. There is a logic to saying, you know what, we're more likely to make a better deal for our team in February, even if you could make an argument that there are good options available now through trades, which, by the way, there really aren't. So contextually, frustrating as it is, there is a lot of logic behind the Lakers holding off on kind of a desperation move over the summer.
I mean, look, there is right now, maybe August 7th, after there's clarity one way or the other with Lauri Markkanen, things start loosening up and you start seeing potential opportunities for the Lakers where it becomes less excusable to have waited. But talked about this before. I completely understand the fan frustration, but I also don't feel like the Lakers missed out on a lot that they realistically, or frankly, missed out on anything that they realistically could have, should have done.
We will be back. I doubt major free agency or trade news is going to happen. We have some Olympics to talk about and continue our offseason look at the team. Do want to thank you for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day. Make your second listen maybe the Locked On NBA podcast. There's no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers. Please leave us questions, leave us comments. We use them on the show, particularly over the summer. We will see everyone on Monday.